So we're looking at the first couple of verses in particular and seeing how really everything flows out of this. And this is where God tells him, you shall not take a wife. Now, I tried to be very creative with coming up with a really catchy title, Serving God as Single. I thought, that's not very catchy. Single Sacredness, that sounds religious. And I was trying to, then I thought, No Wife, No Strife. Could be onto something. The word of the Lord came to me, verse 2, you shall not take a wife, nor shall you have sons or daughters in this place.
Say to them everything that I command you. They shall fight against you, but they shall not prevail against you. For I am with you to deliver you.
Not me, Lord. Not me. I served you in Jerusalem. Please. Now I beg you, let me go my own way.
You shall not take a wife, nor shall you have sons or daughters.
What? Why?
For all the children and the mothers shall die a grievous death in this land, because their fathers have not kept my law.
Lord, you cannot burden me with this!
Go and proclaim it in the hearing of Jerusalem.
You cannot ask me to return to Jerusalem. They will stone me. The king will have me banished.
We see that in the second section that we've been looking at, which we've called Jeremiah's complaint, we see again in this clip Jeremiah complaining. So we saw how God responds to complaining in the last section of chapter 15. And now, because Jeremiah in chapter 15 has just complained to God. You're being unfair to me, God. This is not right. This is not fair for me. And then, as I'm reading chapter 15, knowing what chapter 16 is about to say, Jeremiah, I would have held off the complaining till after the first few verses of chapter 16, because you ain't got nothing to complain about yet, mate. It's going to get worse. So here's Jeremiah called to serve God as a single. We live in a very sexualised culture. We live in a culture where pairing and partnering is the norm. It's a rare thing to go to a restaurant and see one person sitting at a table. It's a rare thing to see someone solo single in a social event. We are in a culture where pairing up is just standard practice. We are socialised into that, and it's not a bad thing. But here Jeremiah's called to serve as a single. In some aspects, you could wonder, why is God, you could see Jeremiah could be asking God, why are you being cruel to me? Why are you doing this? I've served you faithfully. We read that in the last chapter where he says, I've not associated with evil people. I've not done the wrong thing. I've served you with all my heart, and this is how I'm getting treated. So Jeremiah could have thought that being single was a curse. He could have thought that, but it's not. It's not a curse. Sometimes being single can actually be the cure. It can actually be the cure for many people's lives. So why would Jeremiah perhaps think that serving God as a single was a curse? Well, Proverbs 18 verse 22 says this, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favour from the Lord. If you find a wife, you find favour from the Lord and you find a good thing. So serving God as a single is not a curse. It may mean a sacrifice, and it can even be a call. And we see all of that in the life of Jeremiah. He was not cursed because he was called to serve God as a single. He had to make a sacrifice, and he was also called. So again, if you're married, probably just take the hand of your spouse. Now just give him a little squeeze and give him that look. You know the look. Like they say for a Christian young girl, you should write a list and pray that list and hope that that guy turns up. They ain't never going to turn up. There's no one who's going to check that list off. Anyway, that's just pastoral advice. And sometimes guys have a list, must be a girl. And that's about it, you know. So, and the dating game can be a cruel thing. And we live in a socialised culture, a culture that says play the dating game, a culture that says if you aren't paired up, if you aren't in a relationship, you're less than a person. If you aren't in a relationship, if you haven't got a girlfriend or a boyfriend, then there's probably something wrong with you. And I went through youth group knowing what I've just said to you. I was quite content. I felt called to serve God as a single, so I never played the dating game. And I saw lives getting ruined and thrown on the scrap heap of relationship wreckages, and it's a horrible thing, a horrible thing. And so if I was to just speak pastorally to every young person here or eligible single person here today, and you're looking for a relationship with someone, that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. But it should not be the primary thing. And that's the point. Because serving God is more important than you getting married. And here Jeremiah is told, essentially, you want to get married. That's your goal. Don't make that your goal. Make serving me your goal. Now, can you? Can you do that? Can you make serving God your goal? And in fact, for those that are married, the goal of your marriage is so that you can serve God. Because I am married, I can serve God the way I do. But that's not the only goal of marriage. The goal of a marriage is so that you can know God better. So what do we see here? Jeremiah is told not to marry because there would come a time when they wouldn't be able to either. No more would the voice of the bridegroom or the voice of the bride be heard. No more would they marry. So Jeremiah becomes the word. People would say to him, how come you're not getting married? Because you're not going to be able to get married soon. The enemy's going to come in. The enemy's going to invade. This is all going to be over. And they'll go, why? Because you haven't kept the word of the Lord. You haven't obeyed God. Your heart has been for you, not for him. And because of that, you're going to reap the consequences. So God sometimes uses people to become the message. He'll use you. The Apostle Paul said, we are letters written by God. We may be the only Bible some people get to read. We need to be the message of God. Jeremiah was. So we, church, we offer ourselves as not just messengers, but as part of the message that God has to this world. We recognise that we may have to pay a price to serve God. We recognise that we, as God's people, won't always be accepted. Our audience may reject us. But we know this. We're sowing the Word of God into people's hearts and minds. And it will be proven true.